There's a mental health problem that we've all got, and it is a glitch which is perfectly invisible to us. So our mental health problem that we all have is an invisible glitch, a logical glitch that we absolutely can't see when we're operating in our usual mode, which is a purposeful, rational mode. If we did want to know about this glitch, we could do. We'd just have to take the time and actually be interested in knowing about it. If that were the case, that we were interested and we were prepared to spend whatever time it takes. Absolutely nothing to stop us knowing about this glitch. And the fact that we don't know about this glitch, for the most part, is an indication of the fact that we don't want to know about it. We have no interest in knowing about it. It really is like the black box of thought, which is to say all the actual workings of thought which take place within a black box. Black box signifying that it's not something accessible to us, not something that we're supposed to go tampering with or knowing about in any way. It's just the workings of the machine, and we're only interested in the output. So there's the box, and the outcome comes out of the box, and we pay total attention to the outcome, the output, rather. And what this output is our life. It's life as we perceive it. It's life as we understand it. It's our lives as we actually live it. So that's the output of the black box. Now, because the output is the output, it's not raw data, that means it's not the real picture. It's the picture that's been tampered with. It's the manipulated picture, the edited picture. Very obviously this is true, because what the hell is the point of having a black box if it's not going to do stuff like that, like editing and changing and deciding what gets to be emphasized and what gets to be not emphasized. That's the whole point of a black box. So what this means is, remarkably, that we're content to live the entirety of our lives on the basis of the picture or understanding that is provided for us by the black box. Totally content, even though it isn't the real picture. Now, in one way, we could say, well, what do you expect? We don't know that the output of the black box is the output of the black box. We just think it's actual reality, untampered with reality, raw, proper, real reality, not something that comes out of a machine, the contents of which we're not allowed to know about. And that's true. No one goes around thinking I'm relating to the output of a black box, which is inaccessible to me. And yet at the same time, it's also got to be true that in the course of our lives, we will get little intimations, little incongruities, little things that make us think, or could make us think, hang on, is everything above board? Is reality really reality? Or is it all being manipulated in some way? Now, I don't really know, but I would say that we all get feelings like that from time to time. Of course we do. The only difference is that, for the most part, most of us would undoubtedly just disregard such feelings. and carry on. Because the feelings are very uncomfortable, and where do they lead to? They're obviously going to lead to an even more uncomfortable place. So even though we won't actually dwell on that and work it out rationally, it's a reaction. We know it's uncomfortable, we know it's going to lead to an even more. We have that insight on one level, and so we just react to ignore it. Not everyone ignores it. And of those that do ignore it, not everyone ignores it all the time. But for the most part, it's a kind of a thing that only a few people actually would take that much interest in it. And those that do can use those moments, those incongruities, those little mismatches between what we think should be the case and what actually is the case. We can use them to produce stuff. It's a great source of creativity. It's the only source of creativity. When actual equals expected, there's no creativity in that. That's just a literal statement of fact, which is the deadest of all possible dead things, a literal statement of fact. It's the death of consciousness. Literal statements of fact are the death of consciousness. Absolutely. We're stepping into a morgue when we step into the world that has been literally described for us by the thinking mind. We don't know that, of course. We think this is just, normal. That is life. It isn't, though. It's a morgue. But somehow we manage to not pick up on that fact for the most part. So the morgue-like quality of the literal description or representation of reality is something that I'll come back to a bit later. But to start off with, I just want to talk a little bit more about this, the weirdness that comes to us when we're aware of the box a little bit. So this is two things at the same time. It's unsettling, but it's a source of great inspiration and creativity, and it really can open up our worlds an awful lot. And if we're not running predominantly on fear, we'll be interested in that. And if we are running predominantly or wholly, as is more likely to be the case, on fear, then there's no interest. There's the opposite of interest. There's total aversion. There's this really, really total aversion that doesn't even want to know that it is averse. That's like I'm shutting something out and I don't want to even see myself shutting it out. And that's denial. That's our attitude to what we don't want to know about, because it'll upset the apple cart. So, because this is our modus operandi, to want to not know about something and not know that we don't know about it, and just operate solely on the basis of the output of the machine that we're going to treat as reality. That gives us a very particular type of a life, and it stands to reason that it's not going to be a wholly satisfactory type of life. It's not going to be a wholesome type of a life. It's going to be more of a shadow, a darkened version of what life could have been. But that's not news, really. That's always what happens when we operate on the basis of fear. We get the security that we're absolutely yearning for, but at the same time, we get the sterility, the morgue-like nature of something which isn't real, which isn't life, but which is only a very poor, tamed copy. And so then we're locked into that, and it becomes necessary to try and make the most of it that we can, and enjoy ourselves as much as we can, and distract ourselves as much as we can, and tell ourselves that it's going to a good place, or it is a good place, or something like that. And that's what we do. That's modern life. So that's why we talk it up the whole time, because we do have to talk it up the whole time, and that's why it's not. You don't get any leeway to question it, because nobody likes you questioning it, because it's not a good thing to question. Obviously, questioning isn't a good thing. So all of that kind of stuff, it drives us into superficiality. So modern life is a perfect example of superficiality, which we're not allowed to recognize as superficiality, even though we will still suffer from the unsatisfactoriness that is inherent in superficiality. So that we would be quite justified in calling a mental health difficulty, a mental health issue, the fact that we're living wholly on the basis of the tampered with output of the black box, which is thought. But we can go into it a little bit more than that and say that the glitch, which I started off talking about, the glitch that we're not aware of, is itself thought. So this is just another way of saying the same thing, I suppose. That the black box, when we're unaware of what's going on inside it, is the glitch. And the reason it's a glitch is because it's imposing restrictions on us that we can't see to be a restriction. So we're squeezed. We're being squeezed between the restrictions. We're being restricted out of our very existence, really, and yet we have to put a brave face on it and make do with it and say, this is good. I'm having a great time. Isn't life wonderful? I know I'm being sarcastic, but it's just to get the point across, really. That's what we have to do. That's what all positive thinking is about. Saying it's great when it isn't, because it isn't great. It's total shite. Now, there will come times in our lives, for some of us, when we can't go on making out that this two-dimensional existence on the basis of the output of the black box isn't good. Or we can't go on living on the basis that it is good, because the suffering associated with the restrictiveness becomes just too unbearable. We can't cover it up anymore. Our maneuvers don't work anymore. Our maneuvers for making it bearable or distracting ourselves. And so it becomes obvious that things aren't good, things aren't right. It becomes obvious in a huge way. Now, we will call this neurotic mental illness, with the implication that it is an illness or a disorder, as it is referred to these days, that it is a disorder to be aware of the restrictiveness or the glitch-like nature of the world that is being produced by thought. So to become aware of the limitations of the two-dimensional virtual reality world which we're having to live our lives out within is a disorder. Now, that fact in itself is enough to make your head spin. To see the truth is a disorder. To realize that we're being held back and constrained, and more than this, actually neutralized. Every bit of our life is being neutralized by the fact that it's all happening on the basis of thought, because everything that comes out of thought always neutralizes itself, because every positive comes with a negative, and so we always go around on this particular circle of appearing to get somewhere and then finding out that we're not getting somewhere, and then becoming optimistic and hopeful again, and then thinking we're getting somewhere and then finding out we're not, until we eventually die. And that's a glitch by any accounting. If we don't see that glitch, then we keep going on the merry-go-round and imagine that it is somehow progressive or can be progressive. And when we don't see the merry-go-round, we will say that this is mentally healthy because we think everything's okay, because it seems as if everything is okay. So this particular fiction, mental health, really, in our world, mental health really means the ability to live in a fiction without ever seeing that it's a fiction, and without experiencing the downside of living on the basis of a fiction or on the basis of an illusion. That's kind of an extraordinary thing. I mean, really, what that means is if that's mental health, it's unattainable, because there's no way to do that, really. There's no way to treat a fiction as the truth and get away with that, or to treat a very, very narrow, constrained way of living life as the full way of living life and get away with it. But I suppose it has to be said that our contemporary culture is very good at making a go of that and attempting to produce that. It seems to be modern culture seems to be self-destructive at the same time, but it has to be acknowledged that it is quite good at selling the illusion and keeping the illusion going. As Sogyal Rinpoche says, he admits to being pretty impressed, in a manner of speaking, with the way in which we Westerners manage to market samsara. It's like thousands of years human beings have been doing their thing on this planet, but no one has ever come close to marketing samsara in the way that we have. So kudos where kudos is deserved, I suppose. We can feel good about that. We've done something pretty amazing, albeit amazing in an inverted way. We've succeeded brilliantly, and we are succeeding as against us. We've succeeded at our own expense. Nothing fails like success, as Alan Watts says. So the core thing that I'm trying to focus on here is that our definition of mental health is an inversion of the true state of affairs, what you would be justified regarding as wholesome or healthy, or being good for us, like nutritious, good stuff. We're being given something that's very non-nutritious, that we are being asked to snack on and enjoy and live a healthy life on the basis of. So the only route from the inverted life, which is where we imagine that what is real is unreal and what is unreal is real. So that's the inverted life, which is always the only type of life that can be provided by thought. Not that thought's supposed to be providing us with a life. It really isn't supposed to be doing that. We don't need thought to manufacture a life for us or provide us with our understanding of what life is, what life looks like. We don't need thought to do that for us. But thought does. It goes right ahead, and that's exactly what it does. So the only route from this situation where we are living in the mind-created virtual reality to get back to any sort of wholesomeness is to experience the downside of living on the basis of thought, of living in the mind-created virtual reality. And that experience of the actual suffering that is involved in living on the basis of thought is what we call neurotic mental illness. So depression can be seen as one aspect of that, because when we're living in a world that is, as I said earlier, like a morgue, it's like a morgue because all of our ideas about the world, all of our beliefs about the world, our understanding of the world is dead. And the reason it's dead is because there's nothing to it, there's nothing beneath it. It doesn't give way to a richer and richer understanding because it's a literal description. It is what it says it is, and it always stays the same. So the world that thought provides for us has been absolutely nailed down as being what it says it is. Number two, it's always going to stay that way, so it's kind of very, very boring. It's always the same thing over and over again. And three, most importantly of all, it's totally, totally untrue because our literal descriptions of life in no way partake in reality. They have nothing to do with reality. In essence, what our thoughts are doing are producing a husk-like world, which is like a hard outer shell with the insides having been scooped out. So we live in this shell-like world, this world that somehow it's like a secretion of something solid. It's like a shell around us that's blocking us, preventing us from seeing reality. So thought doesn't portray reality to us. It insulates us from reality, just as Anthony de Mello says. It presents itself as interpreting reality when really it hoodwinks us completely. Okay, thanks for watching.